If you compare beer with bratwurst,
and cheese with wine,
or even whiskey,
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies,
missing persons,
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories.
All right, everybody. I am Jason, and this is Katie, and welcome to Perfectly Paired with. Katie, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Excited to be here with you and excited to have our listeners check in again this week for another crazy true crime story.
Yeah, I am too. I'm very interested to see what you've brought us this time. You have not told me much about it at all.
Okay, so as a little introduction to lead into our Perfectly Paired with beverages, today's story is going to start out as an unsolved murder of a 30-year-old Swedish woman living in Scotland with an international rugby star as a possible person of interest. But it will end in a conspiracy theory involving one of the most secretive but well-known intelligence agencies of all time. This is the story of Christina Bjorsen. Oh, wait, shoot. I messed that up. I mean, Annie Christina Bjorsen.
Okay. It's almost sounded like you said the same name there, though.
They're two different names, but I easily confuse them. And perhaps they're going to be easily confused later as well.
Ah, gotcha. Fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Where is this taking place? Did you say that?
So the crime is going to take place in Scotland, but our victim was actually born in Sweden and had just recently moved to Scotland.
All right. Well, that's about kind of all you really told me about it. Tiny details other than that, but with those details, I have chosen two different drinks. We're first going to start with, I'm sure, even if you didn't know, because it's sitting in front of you, you could guess what we're going to go with, and that is Scotch, which is Scotland's whiskey. So technically, you aren't supposed to call your single malt whiskey Scotch unless it's from Scotland. So yeah, we've got Clydeside, and this is actually from the region that our story's in. Since I asked a few details of like that, a lot of different regions produce Scotch, and I thought it'd be fun to get one from that region.
Perfect.
Which they call this a lowland single malt Scotch whiskey. Just a little bit on the notes. Jason's notes on the notes is floral notes on the nose, fresh sweetness with tropical tones, a palette of orchard fruits, and hints of white pepper.
I don't think floral hints when I think Scotland, but I've never been. So maybe it is fitting.
Well, I've never really thought floral hints when I've had Scotch, but I haven't gone back to Scotch. When I started drinking whiskey, I was drinking some Scotch and then started getting into bourbon, and I haven't really gone back to Scotch since then. So I'm very curious how my palate's going to do with it.
Well, our ice is melting, so pour some for this wee bonny lass over here.
I'll drink some of that water in there.
My Scottish jargon. And while he's pouring, I just want to take a few moments to say thank you for everybody who has listened to our prior episodes and are tuning in this time. Specifically, a shout out to Karen Brett. Thank you for drinking with us last Friday while you listened. And for those of you who also would like to drink with us while you listen to our tales of murder, you can look up our Instagram, which is the Perfectly Paired with podcast. And every Wednesday there's a post which is going to reveal some clues as to what our story is about. And it's going to let you know what we are sipping on. So if you'd like to sip on the same. It's a listener out there named Kelsey who thought that would be a good idea. And girl, great minds, because since our first episode, we've been doing it. So thank you for listening too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea. Okay. Cheers.
Right. To the Scotch. That's pure dead brilliant, that is. I'm curious, why is it so light in color?
I mean, different whiskeys are lighter and darker.
I mean, it is like a clear-ish amber. Not
Yeah.
even amber.
Our ice is pretty much melted by now. Well, not. I mean, it's melted a bit, and so that'll take away from it. But if you look at the bottle, it is not dark at all.
I looked at the bottle. It's very light in color, but it's strong in flavor, and I do taste floral. 100%.
I do too. And it's not a strong scotch. I mean, most scotches I have, they kick you in the face a bit. And they're like very
This is a gentle
peaty.
caress with a couple of toes at best.
What? Okay. I don't even know how to respond to that. So the next one we got is another liquor.
Yes.
I didn't even know this until I looked up, since our main person in the story is
a Swede.
Is a Swede. So I looked up Swedish drinks, Swedish liquors, and they're part of what's called the vodka belt, which is funny. I didn't even know about that. I always kind of associate vodka with, of course, Russia, and apparently Russia is not the only ones that are producing all our vodka and drinking vodka, and a lot of it. So Sweden, their most manufactured drink from their country is Absolute vodka.
And I had absolutely no idea, even though I'm like 30% Swedish.
Well, why didn't your blood tell you?
I have no idea. That should be my drink of choice.
Seen it on the shelf and be like, oh man, I'm feeling something with this one. All right. And you know, I know a lot of people like their vodkas in a glass over rocks as shots, and everybody does it every way, everywhere. So I just figured we'd make it easy.
You just poured it straight in a glass because you're id.
Do a couple shots.
Oh.
Katie did not do her whole one.
I did a half. I'll finish it. I promise.
I did mine. Ooh.
Well, if that doesn't wake you up, I've got a story that will wake you up.
I bet you do. So what do you think of Absolute? You got to talk about that for a second.
I'm not particularly a vodka fan. So it's just kind of another vodka. I don't have a preference. The fact that it's Swedish, it now will be my vodka of choice. And I will be annoying. And I will say, I'll take the Swedish one, please, wherever we go. So you're welcome.
See if they know their stuff. And if they don't, you'll call them out on it.
We'll have a lesson.
Yeah. Well,
I prefer the vodka to the scotch, though. But that's my palate.
oh, interesting. I mean, I like vodka. I could drink it over rocks. I prefer whiskey, though, over that. Mm-hmm. But I do think, and I don't know if there's any science to this, but I feel like vodka is a much cleaner hangover. I feel much
Don't
worse
sign me up
after
for any
whiskey.
of them.
Anyway, so what do you got for us?
Okay. Scotch from Scotland, a vodka from Sweden is perfectly paired with a story involving both countries. So, Annie Bjorsen was born on February 7th, 1975, and she grew up in Sweden with her parents and 3 siblings. A friend of Annie, Maria Jansson, described Annie as follows. She was a, quote, beautiful young woman, independent, strong. With her long, thick blonde hair, she was like a Viking princess. Now, sometime in 2003, Annie and a friend of hers visited Scotland, and whether it was the rugged mountain landscape, the serene loch views, rustic Celtic music, the Scotch whiskey with its floral tones, or simply the local cuisine like haggis, Annie absolutely fell in love with Scotland. So much so that in 2005, she moved to Scotland. Annie rented a flat, which is also an apartment, in Edinburgh at the Linton Apartments. Annie had 2 flatmates. She had her own private bedroom, but the 3 would share living spaces. Annie had been hired by the Scotch Whisky Heritage Center, which was a tourist location, and they offered her a 6-month sponsorship, which I think is like a work visa here in the United States. Annie happened to be a very talented singer, and she sang and played bass in a band that entertained the patrons at the Scotch Whisky Center. In August of 2005, after her sponsorship was up, Annie had to move back to Sweden. For 2 months, she lived there with her parents and collected unemployment. She was able to save up quite a chunk of money that she could use when in October 2005, she moved back to Scotland to the same Linton Apartments. While living in Scotland this time around, Annie kept herself busy by looking for other places of employment. Annie spoke 6 different languages: Swedish, Finnish, French, Hungarian, Spanish, and was learning English in Scotland.
Wow.
And it's plausible to think that a woman of her talents would be able to find employment somewhere. When not looking for a job, Annie enjoyed activities that kept her physically active. She particularly liked hiking. She also was an incredibly strong swimmer and spent much of her time swimming at a nearby pool. Annie also happened to be a fan of rugby, and it didn't matter who was playing, she enjoyed watching them at the local rugby club. But she did much of this by herself, as it seems like Annie wasn't able to make many close friends while living in Scotland. Now, even though Annie wasn't much of a drinker, she still enjoyed going out to the clubs and experiencing the best nightlife Scotland had to offer. So it was in November 2005 that she found herself out at a club called Mood. It was there that Annie, the huge rugby fan, if you remember, met a man who introduced himself as Martin Leslie, the professional rugby player from New Zealand, and he asked Leslie if he could buy her a drink. Martin, again, who was born in New Zealand, actually played rugby professionally for Scotland until 2003. He basically, for us Americans who don't follow rugby, was an international star. But despite his sports status, after buying Annie one drink...
Wait, like star, like, I guess amongst rugby fans, what would you compare it to? Like, I don't know, to a soccer star.
I would say he's not Messi.
Okay.
Let's not lose our minds. He's definitely not Messi, but she would have known who he was. She
Okay.
would have recognized his name.
Yeah.
And if he played in
guess, like,
Scotland,
with-
that's a big deal in Scotland.
Right. Like if you're a football, even a casual football fan, you would
know. You would recognize
of,
the name. That's my impression.
Yeah. Okay.
But despite this sports status, after buying Annie the first drink, as Martin handed her a second beverage, which Annie actually didn't see get poured, she declines the beverage from him. So I don't know if she was just practicing what every smart young person, thank you to Jeffrey Dahmer for making it not gender specific, should practice when being offered a beverage, or if she had an immediate gut instinct about Martin. But Annie's refusal of that second drink would not be the only time Annie questioned the motives of the rugby star. Actually, when describing her encounter with Martin to a friend later, Annie would say that he made her super uneasy. This feeling was only heightened when Martin showed up at the swimming pool when Annie was swimming there on November 30th.
This is the second time she's seen him?
Yes. According to Annie's friend, Maria, Annie could not recall if she told him about her plans to swim there that day, or even if she mentioned that she liked to swim at that specific pool. But that surprise meeting made Annie question whether or not Martin was, and these are her words, a sexual predator. But she decided that from that moment on, she had to cut off all contact with him.
Was she contacting him before? Like, should she give him her number? Or what's the...
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So it's at this point in our timeline that Annie's behavior began to change. It actually became quite strange. Annie started to call her family at weird hours, like super late at night when she knew they would be asleep. And then when they returned her call in the morning, she refused to answer. At one point, she has a conversation with her brother where she asks him, how easy would it be for somebody to hack my computer? She was incredibly worried that somebody was monitoring her computer use.
So how long after does this strange behavior happen? From
November
her...
30th, she sees Martin Leslie at the pool. The last time she's seen alive is December 3rd.
Oh,
so it's a run of 4 days.
Holy cow. Okay.
At one point, Annie was so paranoid that she makes a phone call to her family from a payphone, and she explains to them that she thought someone was listening to her calls from inside her flat. There was one specific conversation that stood out to her family. While speaking to her mother, Annie is reported as saying something to the effect of, quote, "You need to respect that I need to take care of it." And then later, when her mother added that the two would speak tomorrow, Annie ominously responded, "We will see about that."
So she's telling her mother about what's going on. Her mother's probably giving her advice, and she says, you need to let me handle it.
Mm-hmm. Now, most people believe that Annie had plans to fly home on the 3rd of December to visit her family for the holidays. The day before, which would be December 2nd, Annie actually scheduled a hair appointment for her hairstylist back in Sweden to take place during the time period of her visit. Annie was obsessed with her hair. She would drink aloe vera drinks because she heard it made her hair like longer and stronger.
And you said she had thick brown hair?
No, it was
thick
blonde. She's
hair?
a Viking princess.
Oh, the Viking part, yes. Oh, Sweden, too.
Yes.
Of course.
She also, before leaving on December 3rd, paid her entire month's rent for December. Later, the same day, so December 2nd, Annie made a phone call to a friend, and she talked incredibly excitedly about attending a party later that night. However, since that day, nobody has been able to verify that this party ever took place. In fact, no one came forward with any details that there was ever a party that Annie attended on the night of the 2nd.
Okay, so to recap, she had plans to go to Sweden
to get her beautiful princess hair taken care of
and possibly stay there for a while because she paid her rent.
Yes.
These weren't spur of the moment plans, right? Or do you know? I mean, she had this plan for a while.
I think so. I think the ominous, we'll see about that, could be interpreted as, hey, I'm gonna talk to you tomorrow because I'm gonna see you tomorrow, to her mom. So I think if it's not this ominous, the world is ending, I've made a choice that will change my life, which she did say to somebody, it was, haha, mom, I will talk to you tomorrow because I'm gonna see you tomorrow. Like she had plans in place.
Okay. I just want to make sure she has plans to go to Sweden long before, like probably before she met this dude. Probably told him about going back to Sweden. They're talking. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Sweden. I'm actually going back there.
What you drinking? Scotch or Absolute?
Yeah. And he's like, I need to pick my poison.
Wow. I don't know if that's how their conversations went, but I do think that she had plans to fly back to Sweden for the holidays.
Gotcha.
Scotch got me in the throat. On December 3rd, which is the last day that Annie would be seen alive, Annie packed her backpack with several items that you would need if you were planning to fly home to visit your parents for a while. This included her passport, as well as library books, which she needed to return to a library in Sweden. She then took...
They're like calling her. Can we have our books back?
She's like, you now owe us this many pounds.
Yeah.
Actually, that's Scotland's currency. I don't know what Swedish people pay. It's fish, Swedish fish. It was like 100 Swedish
100%.
fish she owed
I
for her overdue.
I almost paired this podcast with Swedish fish, honestly. They're the best.
To be honest, I feel like the most Swedish thing you could have done was soak Swedish fish in absolute vodka and serve it next to a pot of black hot coffee. Like, that's so Nordic.
Is that a real thing?
Yes, it is.
You soak the Swedish fish
No,
in
that's
your alcohol?
a Katie thing. That's a Katie thing. But you want the most like staple something to serve somebody from like a Northern European country, hot black coffee. 6:30 at night, hot black coffee.
You're saying the coffee is the most Swedish thing.
Just combine them all
fish
together.
And I mean, yeah, that would. Oh, I see what you're
he-
saying.
Jason did say, he goes, I'm going to get vodka because it's Swedish and Swedish fish. And I was like, yes, we will soak one in the other. And then if you want to make it super Swedish, it'll be with hot black coffee that we'll serve in my teapot, which
The
has
coffee threw me off because you didn't talk about that. And I was
Swedish.
like, wait,
No,
is
that's
that an
just what-
actual? Like you looked it up before. Like,
No,
oh
I
my
just,
goodness.
I know that.
Vodka. Like with Swedish fish and
No.
coffee next to it. That's what they're doing over
It's
there. And then you just
super
shared that
cool
with me.
until
But
you
you're
add the
saying you
coffee.
combine them all.
And
That's
then
the
just
most
put
Swedish
some coffee and it's fabulous.
thing. Maybe it should be a thing though. I know coffee pairs really good with bourbon.
Scotch.
I don't know about scotch.
I bet it does.
Maybe.
All right. So we don't know. So they have pounds in Scotland. We don't know the currency in Sweden.
We assume it's Swedish fish.
And if it's not, we're sorry. Check your resources, people. Okay. Back to Annie Bjorsen. So she is going to take her backpack full of her supplies, and she is going to travel by public transportation to Glasgow Central Station. She's going to try and withdraw £100 from a cash point, which I think is like an ATM. The withdrawal is going to be declined due to insufficient funds. And he's going to make a second attempt, this time for £50, but this amount is also declined due
just
to
the worst
insufficient funds.
feeling ever.
Now, when her family hears news of this, they're completely confounded because Annie has never struggled with money problems. And since she wasn't paying rent at home in Sweden, it didn't make sense that she didn't have enough money in her account. Now, Annie is going to travel from Glasgow to Prestwick Airport, which was the airport she always used when flying in or out of Scotland, despite the fact that she hadn't already bought a ticket. She arrives at the airport at 3:15 p.m. Annie leaves the train station by crossing a walkway, which takes her into the airport itself. Using timestamps from CCTV footage, Annie makes the trip from the train station to the short stay car park in a total of 55 seconds. She's going to walk out into the short stay car park and is outside for a total of 3 minutes, where no camera footage documents what happened. But it is clear that when she comes back into the airport, back to where cameras can see her, she is incredibly upset. She doesn't stay in the airport for long, about another minute, and then she leaves the airport for good and heads off towards the beach.
What the yuck? This episode of Perfectly Paired With has been brought to you by 303 Training Center. 303 Training Center is the best jiu-jitsu gym in the USA. And that might be my own personal opinion, and it just might be the only opinion I have on this podcast that actually matters or means anything. And the reason is I've been training there forever. If you don't trust me, just ask some UFC champions, ask our best in Colorado kids program, ask your neighbor who is kicking ass in life because of the gym. 303 Training Center. Come check it out. You get a week free and tell them Perfectly Paired With sent you. So you're saying in 55 seconds, she goes from one place to another, comes back, and she's really upset.
Mm-hmm.
Upset as in like crying or mad?
The CCTV footage has her like chewing on her nail beds.
Oh, like scared almost. Okay. And then she didn't buy a ticket either.
I think it's
But she was
incredibly
maybe
important
withdrawing
for
funds.
everybody to remember that there was no ticket purchased in the name of Annie Bjorsen.
Okay.
But a lot of people speculate that her withdrawals from the cash points or the ATMs was to secure the cash in order to buy the plane ticket home.
Which, it's 2005, right?
It's an hour. I think
From
shortest was, when I looked it up, was an hour and 40-minute flight.
And maybe from that part of the world
In 2005.
maybe they could just buy a ticket with cash.
This is my
mean,
college education
post
speaking.
2001,
They're
you
both members
couldn't.
of the European Union. So
Yeah.
I guarantee you it was relatively inexpensive to fly between Sweden and Scotland and Scotland and Sweden.
But even in the United States now, you can't buy a ticket cash. You have to use a credit card or something, don't you?
I don't know. My husband doesn't like to fly. So
Don't tell everybody that.
okay. So let's get back to the story. Annie Bjorsen leaves the airport and she heads off towards the beach. We're going to pick up this story on the morning of December 4th, 2005, which is a very important day. December 4th. He's writing it down. Why is December 4th an important day, Jace?
Important.
12/4. Why does it matter?
I feel like there's
What
something
happened on December 4th?
significant there, but
It's my birthday.
are you sure?
All right.
Just kidding. I know.
So while I was celebrating my 20th birthday, a man is going to walk his dog along Prestwick Beach. And he's going to think that he sees a young woman sunbathing early that winter morning. But as he takes the milliseconds or whatever it takes to process, it doesn't make sense that a woman in Scotland would be sunbathing at 8:30 a.m. on that winter morning. So this man named David is going to take a closer look. Upon closer examination, he determined that it was the body of a deceased woman laying face down in the sand.
Oh, geez.
The body had long blonde hair, was wearing jeans, a top, and trainers, which, according to my Harry Potter knowledge, means sneakers.
Trainers.
Okay. Now, the body was laying wrapped in seaweed a good distance from the shoreline, below a seawall that was intended to separate the beach from the road. This is not an area of the beach where the water hits often. Next to the body was a green coat and a bag containing a passport, wallet, and several changes of clothes.
Just for a second, I'm still thinking of somebody thinking of a person sunbathing
In December.
They're not on a towel and they're like face down in the sand. Did that same person, and sorry because some alcohol has gone to my head.
His name is David.
I'm not tracking everything exact. But David, did he then, like he thought at first it was somebody sunbathing? And
but
then,
don't we always
then he was
think
like,
it's a mannequin? And then you're like, it's not.
No, I never think it's a mannequin. I'm just like, that's a body. Here's a fun fact, though, and why I don't even know why he thought that for a second.
Facts?
The average daily temperature in Scotland in December is 45 degrees.
Well, I'll tell you this. When Annie left the airport, she had on a red fleece and then a green over jacket. So it absolutely makes sense that it's that cold.
Yeah.
She was prepared
It makes sense
for-
that she's not sunbathing.
I know, but you're just walking your dog on
You're
December
you're
4th
hopeful.
morning.
You're just
and
like-
you're just like, please don't ruin my day. 100%. Anyway, David the dog walker is going to call the police. And he is going to report that within 10 minutes of his call to the officials, police officers arrive. They're going to take his information. I'm assuming this includes his name, David.
Sure.
Maybe contact information.
Probably.
And then they literally never contact David again. So
what?
yeah, 0 follow-up questions. They're like, thank you, sir. Have a good day.
I'm guessing you're telling us some other stuff that maybe...
I don't even know about Scotland anymore. So, from the time Annie's body was discovered on the beach to the time her body arrived at the mortuary, it was less than 100 minutes. Now, according to Detective Michael Neal, the team was racing against time and the tide. But others are left wondering, with such a short window to collect evidence, was everything done forensically that needed to be done? Or was crucial evidence lost? Now, within a few days, 2 days, newspapers would be reporting that the Scottish police had ruled out any suspicious circumstances. And very early on, the police were concluding that either Annie died as a result of an accident or a suicide.
Okay. I know you're going to share it with us, but...
He's holding his glass of scotch in his hand. Come on, dive in.
We should start recording videos so you don't have to narrate what I'm doing. What the heck caused the death? I mean, by accident or suicide? There's like
All right.
only so many things that can actually be.
So this isn't written into my script at all, but the first newspaper article, which came out on December 7th, actually had several inconsistencies. They first reported that Annie was 31 years old when she died. She wasn't. They reported her being found on an incorrect street. They named the street. That's not where she was found at all.
She was on a beach.
And the author of the newspaper article died in 2018, but not before he published to the internet a bunch of his personal notes, which indicated that he thought everything he was being fed was a bunch of bollocks, which I think is British, but Scotland's part of England, so we're going to go with that.
I'm pretty sure I've heard my British friends say bollocks.
Eddie. And so this report, like, trying to convince people that no suspicious, like, circumstances have anything to do with the death of this young woman, literally felt like somebody wrote an article with very little actual information and was like, hey, you have to publish this.
So they basically didn't care about, like, nobody cared. The cops didn't care. The newspaper didn't care.
I'm going to say that as like a synthesis of everything by the end of this, but I'm going to go on to say that the Scottish police were not without their own justifications for the conclusion.
Interesting. Okay.
So, Scottish investigators would locate some more CCTV footage of a figure walking along Station Road around 4:05 p.m. on December 3rd. They would conclude that that individual was Annie, and that would be her walking from the airport to the beach where she was going to commit suicide.
What time was she at the airport?
She arrived at 3:15. It was a
And then
30-minute,
4:04?
4:05, she was walking along Station Road. And the total time it would take for somebody to walk from the airport to the beach was about 30 minutes.
So it's probably her.
Well, the figure, which never actually revealed their face to the cameras, was wearing a backpack similar to the one Annie had on at the airport. But when Annie's family saw the footage, they weren't convinced, even going as far to say that they believed the figure could actually have been a slender male. Now, the police are also going to provide evidence that 2 individuals who had been walking along the beach on the afternoon of the 3rd, they would go on to report to the police that they saw someone standing along the shoreline that afternoon/evening, and the individual gave them an eerie feeling, even commenting to each other that they hoped that individual wasn't planning on taking their own life.
Wait, say that again?
Okay.
So she's acting in a way that...
No. So two males come... This is how it was reported in my sources. So, the morning of the 4th, David calls the police. Obviously, the police arrive, and I'm sure it draws quite a scene from the locals. At some point, a man approaches the police officers, and he says, "Hey, yesterday, my friend and I were walking along the beach, and we noticed a figure standing along water's edge, and it gave us an eerie feeling to the point where we literally said to each other, 'I hope this person doesn't kill themselves.' And yet, we continue walking along the beach. When we circled back, this individual was still standing along the water's edge, but we continued walking." So this individual reports this to police officers. When they ask him more questions, he says, "You know what? I didn't see this person's face. I could not even tell you if it was a male or a female." But when police wrote their reports, they wrote it up as 2 individuals saw someone who looked like Annie Bjorson standing at the water's edge the afternoon/evening of the 3rd. And when questioned later, this individual withdrew their comments and said, "That isn't what I said at all. We saw somebody. I don't know if it was a girl. I don't know if it was a boy. They made us nervous." That was it.
That's super weird. I wonder if suicides are common around that area, because just seeing somebody, I mean, at least here, like you see somebody at the edge of the water on the sand.
All right.
In the wait, this is afternoon. In the afternoon, you don't
4-ish.
You don't think like you're just okay. That person's out there
All right.
meditating.
Just
but here's the thing with the male female thing. You did say, so obviously she's a Viking goddess, but didn't you say that she had like a broad, maybe not broad, I don't know what word you used, but that she had like a strong frame. Like she seemed to.
Her friend used the phrase "a Viking princess." And every picture I've seen of her, she isn't a teeny tiny woman.
Okay.
Like I feel like
you described her in a certain
could,
way that was, she looked strong, right?
If she's a swimmer, I'm betting on her. Yep. She's got shoulders on her.
Sure.
Nobody,
big lats.
And if her family looks at her and goes, "That's a slender male," like nobody's gonna look at CCTV footage of me and go, "That's a slender male." They're gonna be like, "No, that's somebody who's gonna wreck your world."
You're so funny. Oh my God.
You're questioning that? I'll wreck your world right now.
CCTV is gonna show you as a woman. No question about it. Sorry,
she's
love.
not.
You are strong, but it's like a surprising strong. You're
First
small, and then
not.
you wrestle you.
I don't think she's
and
tiny.
You're like,
I don't think she's tiny.
Crap.
I don't think she's tiny.
This woman is fucking strong.
Her hair, we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Her hair is this characteristic that you would notice. It like literally fell down to her lower back.
So she's
She is a Viking princess.
Who's that lady from the Disney story?
Do you know who she? No. Do you know who she reminds me
Let
of?
down thy hair.
My husband does jujitsu.
Come on, stop.
It's Sleeping Beauty.
No, it's.
Oh, Rapunzel. No, my
it's
husband.
Rapunzel, so
not.
So she's Rapunzel hair. She's got long.
Do you know who she actually reminds me of? Ronda Rousey. She reminds me of Ronda Rousey.
Oh, okay. So
she looks like her.
Yeah, and a little.
Yeah.
Bigger.
Yes.
Shoulder wise.
Yes.
Strong looking.
Yep.
woman.
A Viking princess,
She's
Ronda
definitely
Rousey.
prettier than Ronda Rousey. If she's a princess.
Mm-hmm.
Ronda. I don't think she's that pretty. Anyway.
I think she's beautiful.
Do you?
Yes.
All women are beautiful.
Yeah.
On the inside.
No, I think
That's
she's
not true
cute.
either.
It's fine.
So, okay. So
I think she's cute. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because Ronda Rousey, she could
She
be
literally
mistaken
is
for
Ronda Rousey.
a man on CCTV. Because while she's big as a woman, she's not, she's not a man. She's not man-sized frame.
I think the takeaway from that is that the police used it as like verification that when Annie left the airport, she headed to the beach, and Annie's family said, we don't actually think that's her. And if that's not her, then we don't know if she actually just walked to the beach when she left the airport. And I think that's the whole point.
Yeah. I don't know if the family's just grasping at straws with that, though.
Let's keep going then. And
Okay.
let's see if they have something else.
All right.
Besides straws. So in addition to seeing that figure walking on Station Road, the police investigators are going to talk to Annie's Scottish flatmates. And they actually report that Annie was becoming depressed because she wasn't having any luck finding a job. Another former flatmate told investigators that she actually had to move out of the apartment due to Annie's pushy, intense behavior, causing her too much stress. Now, Annie's family was clearly devastated and in shock over the news that their daughter, their sister, their friend was found deceased on a beach 80 miles from her flat. But when they are told that the authorities had concluded that Annie died by suicide, specifically suicide by drowning, that conclusion just didn't make sense to any of them.
Mm-hmm.
To them, Annie was a happy-go-lucky young woman with no history of self-harm or mental illness. And then when confronted with more irregularities and inconsistencies in the investigation, Annie's friends and family became confident. Annie hadn't committed suicide. Instead, Annie was murdered.
Yes, sounds like it.
Now, the first question the family had was, how did her body, after swimming out into the ocean and drowning, wash up on shore right next to her discarded items? Remember, her body was found next to her backpack,
Right.
which was undisturbed, still containing her belongings, including a check that hadn't been deposited for over 300 pounds. Even though Annie was struggling to withdraw funds due to insufficient
She was
funds.
very confident that she had money in the bank.
Very confident
Otherwise,
that
she
she
would
had
have
money in the bank.
deposited that check before trying to withdraw some money.
And perhaps she was worried if she had deposited that check, she wouldn't be able to withdraw those funds.
Did you find
either.
anything about who the check was from?
No.
Work or okay.
No. So what do you think? Do you think it's possible for Annie to discard her bag, swim out into the water, drown, and then happenstance wash up on shore right next to her discarded belongings?
Yes, that is totally possible. Very probable. In fact, I can't see
100%
it
likely.
like happening any other way. You know, those waves, they just put things right back where the
Only
thing came
Scottish
out.
waves do that.
I forgot. You know, Scottish waves are the smartest, so I should have pointed out Scottish waves are going to do that. So, no, I totally agree. It's, what, 0.0001% chance a wave could actually do that. Put a body or
100.
anything like in between exactly where they started.
That alone should have had her family asking questions.
Yeah.
But that's not alone. So Annie's Scottish autopsy reported the following things. There was an unexplained depression in the skin, along with slight bruising and abrasions, which were all deemed consistent with drowning and coming into contact with things in the water.
Wait, an unexplained depression in the skin. any details of what
no,
that?
that is what it says. Like,
Do you
is
ever,
it a
when
single
you're
depression?
researching things, are you kind of morbid like me and like look for the pictures of the autopsy and all that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I definitely do that. Yeah, I regret it after because I'm like, gosh, I have to live with that image, but I don't know. Just
There
gotta
wouldn't be
go
pictures,
Look at it.
and you'll hear why in a minute.
Oh,
However, once Annie's body was back in Sweden, her body was handled by a local mortician named Gun Donberg.
Dongberg.
Yep.
Goon Dongberg.
Gun Donberg.
Maybe Yoon.
I think
that's
it's
that's a mortician's name?
Yep.
Goon Dongberg. I can't help but think that's like a family of morticians, and it started way back then when they were giving last names as just like your job. And Goon Dongberg translated to one who looks
Touches
at
dead
bodies after they're dead.
So Goon had nearly 4 decades of experience in the funeral industry, and she is going to state that there are finger marks around Annie's neck and deep bruising that look like someone had actually hit Annie.
So the mortician's a she.
Goon.
Look at Scotland
Goon.
being progressive. Wait, what did she state again? Say that again.
That there were finger marks around Annie's neck
Oh gosh.
and deep bruising, like somebody had hit Annie. Let's wait.
So suicide? Okay, go ahead.
She also reported that Annie's long hair had been cut shorter with an area she described as a bald spot. Quote, as though someone had grabbed it and pulled it out. End quote.
Okay, so unless she was into some really kinky sex, like she didn't do all this to herself or want it to be done. Fingers around her neck. Katie is shocked. I like
Annie, she wouldn't even take a second beverage.
Right.
Viking princesses don't do that, Jace.
But, you know, if you've ever met one of those people that, and, you know, decides to tell you, hey, I'm into this, you're like, I had no idea.
In addition to the bruising and strangulation marks, aka the signs of kinky sex, tests on Annie's body revealed microscopic organisms called diatoms, which actually were concluded to have come from a fresh water source, which was curious considering Annie was supposed to have drowned off a salt water coast.
Holy crap. So she's... you probably don't know much about them, but are they only freshwater microorganisms?
There are different kinds of diatoms, some from freshwater, some from saltwater, and the ones taken from her body are from fresh water.
I just said microorganisms. Whoa.
Okay, let's add to that.
Okay.
In recent years, the BBC aired a 4-part documentary called The Body on the Beach. And in the documentary, an oceanographer concluded that Annie would have had to travel or swim out just over half a mile into the water before Annie wouldn't be able to stand on the ocean floor while keeping her head above water. Not to mention that drowning in salt water takes roughly 5 to 8 minutes compared to 2 to 3 in freshwater.
Those are different?
Yeah, I don't know how.
Okay.
And Annie was a strong swimmer. Plus, drowning by suicide accounts for only 5% of the suicides in Scotland. The family also had questions about the fact that many of her items, like the library books that she needed to return, and other necessities like her toothbrush, which were reported missing from her flat, were never found in the backpack that she should have packed them in.
Wow.
Now, for the family, one person they wanted the authorities to speak to was obviously Martin Leslie. Annie's family and friends were therefore shocked to find out that Martin Leslie, or at least the real Martin Leslie, had actually moved back to New Zealand, and that is where he was on the occasions that Annie is reported to have interacted with him. Furthermore, the person who claimed to be Martin Leslie never came forward, and the police were never able to locate him. Perhaps the Scottish authorities could have checked Annie's phone records for traces of the man who claimed to be an international rugby star who made Annie worried about her safety. But any call made from or to Annie's phone 3 days before her disappearance and death had been completely erased, removed from the phone company's records, including any record of Annie's phone calling other phones on other phone records. Just gone.
What?
And
That's like high intelligence type stuff happening with erasing records on your phone.
all right, so it's not just phone records. In another attempt to get information, Annie's mom signed into Annie's email account, and every email to or from Annie had been removed from the computer's memory.
Holy cow. Emails as well. Okay. I don't know what's harder, but they're both not, like, a layman isn't doing that. An intelligent man isn't doing that. Unless you actually specifically know how to do that, you're not able to do that. And there's definitely agencies that have the power to do that.
Well, those aren't the only two records that could have been tampered with. At some point, a group is going to try to recreate Annie's CCTV footage from the airport. Now, what took Annie 55 seconds, according to the timestamps on the video, took a reenactor 1 minute and 35 seconds.
Reenactors, so they went from place to
They
place.
left the station. They walked the walkway. They got into the short-term car park, and walking, which is what Annie was seen doing on the footage, took them 1 minute and 35 seconds. In order to make it in 55 seconds, the reenactor had to sprint through the airport, which Annie never did. And she might be a Viking princess, but she isn't a 12-foot tall Viking princess.
Right. She's only covering so much ground.
This begs the question, could the timestamp on the CCTV footage have been altered to remove 30 seconds of time? And if so, why?
I have a feeling you're going to tell us a theory that's out there on all this.
Oh, we're crescendoing.
Let's crescendo.
Now, anytime, brown chicken, brown cow. Now, anytime the family or other journalists have requested records, like pictures of Annie's body from the beach, these requests have been refused based on the fact that they could, quote, harm their, which means Scotland's, relations with a foreign state, end quote. And in a letter to the Swedish government, the Scottish government has declared the death of Annie Bjorsen and I quote, classified state secret, end quote.
What? So her death, which is a suicide by the accounts of
Official
the
record,
authorities.
It's a suicide.
The authorities above them say we can't talk about it because it's a state secret. Mm-hmm. That is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Her family basically cries out, if you have nothing to hide, then show us everything. To which the Scottish government comes back and goes, yep, we got stuff to hide, so you can't see anything.
They don't even... I wish our government did that more. I wish our government was just like, no, we're not going to tell you. It's a state secret, or, no, we did some shit, and we just
they're basically
can't
like, no.
say.
This is bigger than you. It's bigger than the family's closure. So nobody gets to know anything. Moving on. Who wants some haggis?
I'll have some of that.
Scotch.
Screw Annie.
We're not going to give you answers, but have you tried our Scotch whiskey? It's excellent this time
Oh,
of year.
yeah. I forgot about Scotch this whole time. Let's have some.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's at this point in the story of Annie Bjorsen that a theory involving the CIA begins to manifest. So you might remember something called the War on Terror. In 2005, the U.S. was in the middle of fighting the War on Terror. It was a well-known secret that during 2005, U.S. intelligence agencies were utilizing a policy that came from the Reagan administration to fly terrorist suspects across the globe to places like Guantanamo Bay so as to circumvent U.S. laws about not torturing human beings.
Sure. Which we did. A lot of.
Yeah. And you know what? They probably flew right through the airport where Annie was last seen alive. So Prestwick Airport was one place the British government had given the U.S. permission to refuel planes carrying these suspects. Now, Annie's...
Whoever they wanted.
Yeah. Now, Annie's middle name is Christina. And during this time period, there was an Emmy award-winning U.S. journalist named Christina Bjorsen.
Okay.
Who made
Very close.
a living investigating and reporting on American intelligence agencies.
Ooh.
Christina and her reporting on issues like the policy of flying terror suspects to other locations quickly became a thorn in the side of the Central Intelligence Agency.
Ooh.
Could it be that just like me at the beginning of the episode, someone mistook Annie Christina Bjorsen
Oh, I see what you
for
did
the
there
reporter
in the
Christina
beginning.
Bjorsen?
Okay.
Is it possible that a CIA operative or an operative working for another intelligence agency friendly with the United States was so bold as to go undercover as an international rugby player? And if those things are possible, could it be possible that there are government agencies so powerful as to erase every bit of evidence connecting them to the deceased body of a 30-year-old Swedish woman?
Okay. So before I want to dive into your two, whether it was mistaken identity that killed her or an operative is undercover, which, to answer your question, are intelligence agencies powerful enough to erase a person? Fuck yeah, I think so. I think it definitely happens, but probably not a ton. Otherwise, you're going to catch on to it. And maybe this is one of those instances where they're just like, nope, we can't do this anymore. Or at least not for a while because we got caught here. Outside of that, I want to go back to something you had said that has been bugging me since the beginning. And when you share all this, like I kind of, with the CIA and everything put in there, I was very skeptical. But the more I started thinking about it, so what I was thinking about was, you said she was excited for a party. She told her mom that, right? Yeah, friends, but Swedish friends, right? Old friends.
December 2nd.
She's telling them the truth. Not the truth, but she's telling them something. She's excited for something. Mm-hmm. A party is what she says. But there in Scotland, nobody knows of a party that she's talking about.
No.
Nor did anybody invite her to a party. She made up something because she was excited about something, is what I think. And she called it a party. Could that, actually lend towards an intelligence agency theory? Because, I don't know, she's being a recruiter or something. What do you think of that?
I think that's more likely than a mistaken identity.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly something is amiss with Annie Bjorsen's death. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a state secret.
It's yeah.
I can't envision a world where she's talking, thinking she's going to a party, and there's not a single person who can.
She'd have to be
corroborate
insane.
it.
Like it sounds like she went insane at the end from the story and everything that's put out there, but nobody just does that.
Movies, and I feel like in a good movie, if she was being recruited with the ability to speak 5-6 languages, I can't imagine she's not
intelligent.
useful. Wouldn't it be lovely if they invited her to some sort of get together, or at least she thought it was a function, and really the purpose was something else?
Yep. CIA keeps being brought up because of this lady that wrote in the United States, which I want to check out some of her work. I mean,
Well, good luck finding it.
Really?
Well, I tried to find a picture of her.
So they erased her?
Well, I don't know if they erased her. We might be so far removed from 2005 that it just doesn't come up in like Google searches near the top. But I think if you're trying to pinpoint some sort of group or agency that has the power to do what was done to Annie, there's no one better than the Central Intelligence Agency.
I can think of one. And I do believe for my British friends, they will appreciate me bringing it up. And of course, from a man, James Bond, who may be a fictional character, but he will appreciate this. The MI6. That's right. James Bond's agency.
Pistols
Some would
at
argue
dawn.
the best in the world. And probably not tampering with things as much as the CIA, so maybe they are the best. Maybe they are tampering. I don't know. Great Britain has taken over a lot of places, so
The sun never sets on the British Empire.
yeah, basically we are an extension of the British Empire.
No, 1776, and that all ended, sir. Get your history correct.
Well, we extended off of it.
I think the CIA is missing out. They need a theme song, too.
Oh, totally. What would ours be like? It would be like
Yeah.
heavy metal or...
For the CIA?
Oh, no, it would be like dubstep right now. Probably. Yeah.
It wouldn't be this cool, that's for sure.
If it was like 2010, Skrillex would have done it. Yeah. All right, anyway.
Here we go.
You asked for another agency. I gave you one. And that is Scotland's agency because
Scotland.
they are
I
part
misspoke
of-
earlier. I said Scotland was a part of England. They're
Which-
part of Great Britain.
Yeah,
Excuse me. The
doesn't-
whiskey had gotten a hold of me at that
Doesn't
point.
England
but we've
own
come back
all
around.
of them?
So I'm going to go back to your theory about this party being more than just a party.
Yeah.
So are you saying then that if this party was some way used to recruit Annie,
Yeah, because
does she then
you
get
said
cold
she was,
feet and get nervous, and that's why she wants to fly home? And when
all right.
she goes to take money, which should be in her bank account, she can't.
Great questions. I've been making notes as you're talking, but you mentioned she wasn't having luck getting a job according to her flatmates, and I mean, if that's true, like the excitement of being recruited by an agency, an intelligence agency, whether it's MI6 or CIA, who knows? CIA is everywhere, so it's possible.
They're probably
But,
here right now. We love you,
they'll listen to
CIA.
they probably have some algorithm running
say
or
it
AI
enough.
saying
Alexa's
yeah,
flashing
yeah,
yellow right now. It's
yeah,
totally fine.
Yeah, like it's unplugged and actually like doing something. We know.
There's somebody looking in the window. They are everywhere.
Well, with AI especially, or who knows what they're doing. They probably invented it. Anyway, so if it's them, giving her a little bit just like, hey, and maybe they did hear of her name because of this other lady.
So you're not buying it's
So
a mistaken
maybe
identity.
a second of mistaken identity. Maybe a second. Like they're looking into, and like they're looking at everybody with that name and who they are and what they have. And they're like, okay, this is definitely the lady. But then they're like, but look at this lady. She's got, 5 languages under her belt. She's incredibly intelligent.
And I mean, if
And
they
they're
were
like, what is she doing?
checking
She's
her out, that would make
playing
sense that
music
they-
at a bar. Like, perfect. We can use her. She can disappear from her life. Nobody's going to even fucking know. And
she flies home for 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Explainable absences.
Look, and here's the other thing I'm saying, and I brought up MI6 for two, in addition to my note, is if you have two intelligent agencies working, like maybe one of them is approaching her, gives her some information about the other, or like the mission is somehow leaked and they're like, this higher up in the government, like MI6 or CIA is looking into them, and she knows too much. That's kind of my approach on the whole intelligent agency theory.
I love the speculation, but let's get back to like some of the things we know to be true. So you would think or hypothesize that whatever agency was responsible for the party is the agency responsible for her not being able to withdraw cash.
No, I would think another agency would be, or government. Because governments have.
Yeah, but you would think that an intelligence agency would be able to recruit somebody without drawing the attention of another agency or a government. For me, if your story is plausible, then I think she goes to the party. I think she isn't buying what they're selling. I think Martin Leslie was put in her life to try to persuade her to be somebody, and she just doesn't like the situation. Wait. And so she decides, I'm not into it. I want to go home. And this agency is like, not so quick. You're not going to go home. You need to listen to us.
Yeah, Martin is another kind of like wrench in the spokes, of course, with that theory. But at the same time, he fits in. He's on one of the sides, or he was. And maybe he gave that person too much info. Maybe he's being tracked and like she fell into something there. But at the same time, everything you're saying that with the conversations she had with people before and the way she was acting, to me, it leads to she just went insane out of nowhere. Maybe she was doing drugs that, like, all of a sudden her brain just was like, nope, we're going to go crazy. I think that's less plausible because she seems like she's, not doing that type of stuff, considering she won't even take a second drink at most of her parties. The second is, that, and there's something to do with him and some intelligence agency, and whether he was trying to maybe recruit her, like he was sent there to do that, and she got this weird vibe from him because he's not a great agent.
So I think that's what's so interesting about this case is so many people can have so many theories, and there might be elements of likelihood from all of them. Perhaps it's unlikely that the CIA would need to cover up the death of one young Swedish woman living in Scotland, or that some intelligence officer would take on the identity of a famous rugby player to gain an advantage over someone whose identity he had confused. It feels equally unlikely that a government agency would have the ability to freeze the funds of someone just looking to fly home for Christmas without warning or due process, or that a government agency would be able to manipulate CCTV footage from an airport in a post 9/11 world. However, with this story, it seems utterly impossible to come up with any series of plausible events that explain every strange detail associated with the death of Annie Bjorsen. And when the plausible becomes impossible, all that is left is the unlikely. And in this case, the unlikely should cause us all to sleep a little less easy tonight. Because if the CIA can take down a Viking princess, what hope is there for the rest of us?
Love it, babe. Great episode.
Now let's get some scran. That's food in Scotland.
So what?
Scran.
Scran, huh?
Some scran.
I
didn't even get to say all my Scottish phrases.
Oh, what else do you have left?
Your bum's oot de winda.
You told me you were gonna do all these phrases.
I got too into this story.
Where do you fit that in?
It
What
means
does
you're
it mean?
lying or exaggerating. I should have said that when you tried
Yeah, I
to
was
feed me
gonna
some
say, my-
story about 2 agencies.
Yeah, my
Your
theories.
oot your face.
What is that?
Your oot your face. You're
your
extremely
face.
intoxicated from the effects of alcohol.
We both are probably. Put your faces.
I unai. I am
Sounds
not.
Japanese.
All right.
I am not.
Until next time.
Put your face.